Episode 4. How to Stop Feeling Like an Imposter in English. Have you ever sat in an international meeting, looked around the conference room or Zoom grid, and felt a sudden wave of cold panic wash over you? You look at your colleagues effortlessly chatting away in English, and that quiet, ruthless voice in your head whispers, "What are you even doing here?" Any minute now, someone is going to ask you a question you can't answer, your grammar is going to break down, and everyone will realize you're a complete fraud who doesn't belong in this room. A few years ago, I was invited to present a critical project update to a panel of senior directors in London. On paper, I had earned my place. I knew my data inside and out. I had spent days polishing every single slide, checking every chart, and rehearsing my key points until my throat was sore. But 10 minutes before the meeting started, everyone gathered around the table and began making fast, witty, casual small talk. They were joking about weekend football matches, dropping subtle cultural idioms, and bantering with rapid-fire speed. My brain froze instantly. While they were speaking fluidly without a second thought, my mind was stuck on a 2-second translation lag. I kept thinking, they talk like native intellectuals, and I sound like a clunky, robotic textbook. When my turn came to present, I delivered the presentation. But every time I hesitated over a word, mispronounced a complex term, or used a simple phrase instead of sophisticated corporate jargon, it felt like a giant neon spotlight shining on my inadequacy. Even though my manager emailed me after the call saying, "Great job today, David. The directors were very impressed with the numbers," I didn't feel victorious. I sat alone in front of my glowing laptop, feeling completely exhausted, drained, and secretly ashamed, convinced that I had just gotten lucky and that next time I would finally be exposed. What I was experiencing back then has a specific psychological name: Language Imposter Syndrome. It is the persistent, nagging fear that no matter how many years you study English, no matter how many degrees or job offers you earn, you will never be fluent enough or smart enough to truly belong in global conversations. If you've ever felt like an imposter when speaking English at work, at university, or in your daily life, this text is written specifically for you. Welcome back! Imposter syndrome is something that millions of high-achieving professionals deal with every day worldwide. But when you are communicating in a second, third, or fourth language, that underlying sense of self-doubt gets multiplied by 10. You aren't just managing your core job responsibilities, project timelines, and technical decisions. You are simultaneously managing real-time translation, vocabulary recall, accent anxiety, listening, comprehension, and subtle cultural nuances all at once. It is a massive cognitive workload. Over time, if we don't address this mental pressure, it forces us to shrink. We stay quiet during high-stakes discussions, we decline speaking opportunities, we turn down promotions, and we talk ourselves out of applying for international positions that we are completely qualified to hold. Today, we are going to dive deep into the psychological root causes of language imposter syndrome, unpack the hidden mind traps that keep non-native speakers stuck in self-doubt, and explore actionable, life-changing steps to help you communicate with genuine confidence, authority, and authenticity in any global setting. Why do so many brilliant, deeply capable non-native speakers feel like frauds the moment they switch to English? To fix this problem, we first need to dissect what is actually happening inside our minds. There are 3 core psychological reasons for this phenomenon. The first reason is comparing your behind the scenes with their highlight reel. When you listen to a native speaker or a highly fluent colleague, you only experience their finished product, their polished, outer sentence delivered effortlessly at full speed. But inside your own head, you are forced to experience your entire messy construction site. You spend energy searching through mental filing cabinets for the exact word, scanning sentences for tense errors and preposition slips, second-guessing your pronunciation before opening your mouth, and feeling the physical tension in your chest as you wait for a turn to speak. When you constantly compare your chaotic, high-effort internal process to someone else's seamless external output, you naturally conclude that they are naturally smart and articulate, whereas you are struggling and incompetent. What you forget is that everyone, including native speakers, has an internal construction process. Native speakers rephrase sentences mid-thought, stumble over words, and lose their train of thought all the time. But because you are hyper-focused on your own effort, you misinterpret your brain's natural processing work as a sign of intellectual failure. The second reason is the dual identity conflict, or the loss of personality. When you communicate in your native language, you have instant, frictionless access to your full personality. You can be witty, humorous, empathetic, persuasive, and sharp. You can tell rich stories, use subtle irony, and command respect effortlessly. But when you switch to English, especially in professional settings, your available active vocabulary is naturally smaller than your native lexicon. You might struggle to find the exact nuanced adjective to describe a complex feeling or strategic concept. As a result, you feel like a simplified, muted, or flat version of yourself. You might think that in your native language, you sound like an expert, but in English, you sound like a 10-year-old child. This gap between who you know you are inside and how you sound on the outside causes an acute identity crisis. You feel fake, detached, or less intelligent than you actually are. The third reason is the fluency fantasy, driven by biological and linguistic myths. We live under the false assumption that adults who learn English as a second language should eventually speak with the zero-effort spontaneity of someone born and raised in London, Sydney, or New York. Biologically, adult language acquisition engages different neural pathways than child native language acquisition. Operating in a second language should require conscious cognitive effort. Expecting a non-native adult brain to process English with zero friction is like expecting a marathon runner to sprint up a mountain without their heart rate rising. The effort isn't a sign that you are failing. The effort is proof that your brain is performing advanced cognitive heavy lifting. To break free from imposter syndrome, we must also recognize the 4 specific psychological traps we continuously walk into. The first trap is the good student complex. Most non-native speakers learned English in traditional school systems where errors were systematically penalized with red ink and bad grades. We were conditioned for years to treat English as an academic knowledge exam where the goal is 100% accuracy, rather than a human communication tool where the goal is connection and clarity. When you bring that exam mindset into adult professional life, every minor grammar slip, missing article, or mispronounced vowel feels like a failing grade. You view a minor mistake not as a natural part of dialogue, but as a public violation of rules that exposes your ignorance. The second trap is the fictional perfect native speaker. We often hold up a mythical, idealized image of a perfect native speaker as our ultimate benchmark. But does a single, perfect native speaker actually exist? Native speakers come from hundreds of different regions, socioeconomic backgrounds, and cultures. They use non-standard grammar, drop sentence endings, use regional slang, make subject-verb agreement errors, and frequently use filler words like, you know, and basically. When you hold yourself to a standard of literary, textbook perfection that real native speakers don't even follow in daily life, you're playing a game designed for you to lose. The third trap is goalpost moving. Imposter syndrome is a master of moving the target. When you were a beginner, you told yourself that if you could just pass B2 or C1 English exams, you would feel confident. Once you passed, you told yourself that if you could just land a job at an international company, you would feel confident. Once you landed the job, you said that if you could lead a meeting without stumbling, you would feel confident. Once you led the meeting, you said that if you could speak without an accent, you would feel confident. Notice the pattern? You keep shifting the goalpost. Confidence is not a magical destination at the end of a fluency journey. Confidence is a daily decision to accept where you are right now. The fourth trap is the silent observer cycle. When imposter syndrome hits during a meeting, your instinct is self-preservation. You decide to stay quiet, nod along, and avoid speaking up so you don't make a mistake. But here's the tragic paradox. By staying silent, you leave the meeting feeling invisible and unvalued. You tell yourself that because you didn't contribute anything, you really don't belong there. Your silence reinforces your imposter syndrome, creating a dangerous downward spiral where fear breeds silence, and silence breeds more self-doubt. How do we overcome language imposter syndrome once and for all? Here are 4 practical, highly effective strategies you can implement immediately. First, shift your mindset from performance to service. Whenever you feel nervous before a presentation, client pitch, or team call, pause and notice where your internal spotlight is shining. When you are trapped in a performance mindset, your spotlight is pointed directly at yourself. Your mind asks if you sound intelligent, if your accent is too strong, or what will happen if you make a grammar mistake and look foolish. This is self-focused performance anxiety. To break free, turn the spotlight 180 degrees away from yourself and onto your listeners. Adopt a service mindset. Ask yourself what value you are delivering to your audience today, how your ideas can solve a real problem for the team, and how you can make this information as clear and helpful as possible. When your primary focus is helping others understand your message, your self-conscious anxiety naturally evaporates. You stop worrying about how you look and start focusing on how you can help. Second, reframe your accent as a cultural badge of honor. Having an accent in English is not a sign of weakness or low fluency. An accent is undeniable physical proof that you were brave enough to master a second language. Your accent represents your heritage, your culture, your identity, and your cognitive flexibility. It shows that your brain has mastered complex phonetic systems beyond your mother tongue. In international business, clear communication matters. Accent eradication does not. Global teams do not need everyone to sound like a news anchor or a movie actor. They need clear, authentic voices from diverse backgrounds. Never apologize for having an accent. Own it proudly as a sign of your global perspective. Third, measure communicative success rather than grammatical perfection. Shift your definition of success away from textbook rules and toward real-world outcomes. Evaluate your communication using 3 simple questions. Did the listener understand my core point? Was the project decision or next step made clear? Did we build a meaningful professional connection? If the answer to these questions is yes, then your English was 100% successful. It does not matter if you forgot a preposition, used the simple past instead of the present perfect, or hesitated for 2 seconds to find a word. Real-world communication is evaluated by impact and clarity, not by formal test scores. Fourth, build a digital evidence folder or wins archive. Imposter syndrome distorts your memory. It makes you forget all your achievements while magnifying every single mistake you make. To counter this cognitive bias, create a folder on your phone or computer called Evidence or Wins. Take screenshots of praise emails from managers or clients. Save positive feedback from performance reviews. And note down key milestones like your first full speech in English, a successful presentation, or a difficult negotiation you handled. Whenever that familiar voice of self-doubt whispers that you aren't good enough, open your evidence folder and look at the cold, hard facts of what you have actually accomplished. Before concluding, consider one final thought. You were not hired for your job, accepted into your degree program, or invited into that international meeting room by accident or luck. You are in that room because of your talent, your strategic thinking, your technical expertise, your work ethic, and your unique lived experience. English is not a test of your human worth or intelligence. English is simply a tool, a practical bridge that allows your ideas to connect with the rest of the world. You do not need flawless, native-level English to share groundbreaking ideas, lead teams, or build great relationships. In fact, global organizations thrive precisely because non-native speakers bring fresh perspectives, cross-cultural adaptability, and multifaceted problem-solving skills to the table. The next time you step into an English conversation and that quiet voice whispers that you don't belong here, take a deep breath, adjust your posture, speak up clearly, and remind yourself that your ideas are valuable, your story matters, and you earned your seat at the table.